We are back, Morning Line, our final segment on this Tuesday with Josh Horn. He's over from Social Security, and we like to open up the phone lines for you. If you have any questions about Social Security disability, SSI, the application process, how much you're going to draw, all of that, and taxes. How about that?
Yeah, we're entering into that tax season, and one of the popular questions.
Remind me,
I know.
Yeah.
One of the popular questions that we get is about taxes. And I'll mention a couple things too. Is that we do experience a spike in our field office traffic. So folks coming in needing documents for for taxes from Social Security. Maybe they need to get their child Social Security card or something along those lines. So we do experience a high volume of traffic coming into the office in January, especially January and February. And so I encourage you, if there's anything that you could do online, that may be something that you want to look at socialsecurity.gov. There's a whole host of different things you can look at there. Of course, you can give us a phone call too. But if you do come in, you may wait a little longer than normal in January and February, just because we have a lot of folks coming in for a variety of reasons in January and February. But a lot of folks are asking, well, do I have to pay taxes? Do I have to file a tax return on my Social Security? Is that income that I have affected? And so kind of the short answer is that if you're filing individually and your combined income is more than $25,000, or if you're filing a joint return and your combined income is $32,000 or more, then you will have to pay taxes on up to 85% of your Social Security benefits.
So this would be maybe that last caller who's collecting his full retirement but went back and is doing part-time. If he's making enough money in that part-time combined with his Social Security to top, did you say, as a single?
A single would be $25,000.
$25,000. Then he would have to file perhaps for...
He's going to pay at least some taxes on his Social Security benefits. And of course, a tax professional is the best person to advise you on the IRS rules for all that.
Would you get a return on that afterward, tax return?
Now, some folks, so we do not automatically take out taxes from your Social Security benefits. That is a voluntary thing. We do have a number of folks who sign a W-4 that says, I want 10% of my benefits withheld for tax purposes and so forth, just kind of like you do with your paycheck. We don't automatically do that. We have some folks who do that, and so if you have too much taken out of your benefit amount, then when you file a tax return, you might be getting some back that way.
Okay, all right. Listen, we got another phone call here. Let's go to, I think is it Finn? Are you there, Finn? Fred, go ahead, Fred.
Well, back several years ago, I had a business failure.
Yeah.
And according to my accountant who did all the tax work, I had a $300,000 tax credit due to my business loss. But I owed a bunch of banks some money, and I filed bankruptcy on them. And the IRS said that I owed all that I filed bankruptcy on was like income to me, and they wanted me to pay a lot of money as if I'd made a lot of income, and I couldn't pay it, didn't have the money, and so they started garnishing my Social Security check. I'm in my 70s. And I'm in very poor health and can't work. And finally, the accountant that I'm using now worked out a deal with IRS to stop, not to pay what they claimed that I owed due to these banks saying that I made money when I filed bankruptcy. But they didn't, according to the IRS people, the banks didn't report it as a bankruptcy. They reported it as income, which messed up everything. I just wanted all the money that the IRS garnished from my Social Security retirement check, if I could file to get that back.
So you bring up a very good topic, is that any money that's owed to the United States Treasury, whether it's from an IRS situation or one topic that's been coming up some is the federal student debt, some things like that, just a variety of different things that you may owe ultimately to the U.S. Treasury can be taken out of your Social Security benefits, and we get those garnishments on a regular basis. And you did, the right thing is that you actually went to the Treasury to try to resolve the issue or work out a repayment agreement or something like that. Folks who just completely ignore it, it just ends up coming out of their check. But we have to refer them to the Treasury Department. Now, as far as getting that money back, typically that's not something, because if it is a true debt, even though you may work out a waiver or a repayment agreement or something like that, once the money's paid back, we can't then pay it back out to you, because that would just be a further overpayment. So that's a kind of a question we get from time to time.
That just made me think, can there be garnishments made on Social Security payments for child support?
Yeah, we get those occasionally too, if it's depending on who it's through and how it's worked out.
But I mean, you could go after that kind of, I mean, I know sometimes they can go after people's tax returns and things like this, but the bottom line is on child support, it never sunsets. Meaning if you've owed child support and your child now is grown and is 20, but you never paid and there was a court order during the years of its childhood, by the time you get to retirement, if the other parent wants to go after you, I would imagine, which I think is great. If you're a deadbeat not paying child support, you deserve to get nailed.
Well, there's folks who have owed some kind of debt, either to Social Security, where maybe you worked when you were disabled and you got paid too much, or whether it's a situation like this, or with Treasury, and that may have happened in their 30s, and then they just kind of forget about it, and then they come in to file for retirement at 65 or 66 or whatever, and then all of a sudden there's an overpayment still on their record, because that overpayment doesn't just disappear, and then they've got to end up reconciling that at that time. So.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Just wanted to see if there's anything else we should hit on for folks, just considering it's this time of year. I think it's good that you mentioned taxes, because gosh, April 15th will be here before you know it, and whether or not you owe taxes on, and if for some reason, I suppose you're not paying attention, that's something where the IRS could contact you. I mean, they're going to know. I don't know that they're going to go after auditing someone who's not paying on Social Security. It's not maybe a big enough fish, but you'll be notified, probably, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's no different, with the IRS, as if somebody is working and not.
Sure.
If you don't file a tax return, it's going to come back around eventually. So definitely want to check into that. If
and then you could pay penalties and interest on top of everything along those lines after the fact, right?
Yeah, and I'll mention too. Just talk about this time of year, but we got a lot of folks who like to retire in January, beginning of the year, kind of a fresh start, whatever. And I've already kind of mentioned online services, but for a growing number of Americans, that's the simplest, quickest, easiest thing to do is to go online at socialsecurity.gov. Create a My Social Security account. We mentioned that already. It's kind of like online banking, where you set up your own account. And once you're in there, you can file for benefits. You can change your address. You can change your phone number. You can do a whole number of different things without having to wait on the phone, wait in line, so on and so forth. And I mentioned retirement. It takes about 10 minutes or less to file for retirement online, rather than having to either try to set up an appointment or come in and wait for a couple of hours to see somebody. So even if you just try doing it online, we just encourage people, or if you need to go to a relative's house, if you don't have a computer, and try to do online, 10 minutes is just so much easier on your schedule than trying to come in.
That website's intuitive. You go on there and you can follow it. I've done it, and it's great. Take advantage of that. If you have access, if you don't have a computer yourself, go to the library. Places like that can help you. Let's real quick. We've got 2 minutes left. A quick question from David. Hi, David.
Oh, hello.
Hey, Dave. Real quick. What's your question? We just got a couple minutes.
I've had a tax return from me a few times, and I'm not receiving any kind of credit for it, and that's what my problem is. How can I find out, the credit that I should have gotten for it, or that debt wiped out? It seems like they keep coming back with the same amount or even more.
Yeah,
so
if he's
I find that out?
All right. I guess if he's owes some and he's been paying on it, but he doesn't seem to see a change in the amont he owes.
Are you talking about an IRS situation or a Social Security?
Is it IRS or Social Security?
It's tax returns, Social Security tax returns. Yeah, when I file my tax.
Well, if it's a debt that you owe to IRS or through IRS, you really have to contact them. Now, I know on our records, if we work out a repayment agreement, if somebody owes back, owes us money of, $15,000, and we work out for them to repay it $200 every month, then it's going to be $200 a month until that's repaid, and it's kind of oral confirm. I mean, we can orally confirm.
But you're
that the
keeping a
amount's going
tally
down.
as they
But I mean,
pay.
yeah, it's on the record. It shows every time that you pay the money, and we can see the overall debt going down. That's something that we see routinely.
Yeah, he'll need to check if he doesn't see a change in it with the IRS, because I think maybe he was dealing more with taxes. But real quick, what are the circumstances, just with a minute left, whereby you may end up owing Social Security back? Meaning at some point they accidentally paid you too much and you have to pay it back?
Yeah, I mean, if you're drawing disability and you kind of forget to tell us you went back to work, or sometimes there's incorrect computations. It's completely our fault. You know, we may pay you $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 too much because of the benefits weren't calculated correctly. Sometimes that happens.
That's a tough one, because I will say this, that mistakes do happen and they'll work with you to deal with it. But if you're getting a check and you're used to, and you know what you're supposed to be getting, and then all of a sudden out of the blue, you get a check that's like 3 times what it was, that's great. And you're thinking, oh, what a windfall. I'm going to deposit it. But you know what? That doesn't happen without a reason. And if you just choose to do that and put that in there, sooner or later, they're going to figure out a mistake was made and they're going to call you. And even though it was their mistake, but you got it and spent it, you're going to have to pay it back. So it's tough to look at that money and say, oh, you know what? This is more than I should. I'm going to call on it. But do that, because it's going to bite you in the butt later. It just will. We've had calls about that. And even though it was your mistake and you'll work with them to pay it back, if you get that much and you know that's not what you have coming, don't take it, and because they're going to catch up with you. They will.
Yep.
Right?
To waive it, you have to be without fault and unable to repay it back. And those are the two things, you know, we have to look at when we're looking at waiving something.
Josh,
appreciate it.
We'll see you again in a few weeks, my friend. Good to have you on. It's always a pleasure.
See y'all.
Be back with a programming note about tomorrow right after this. Stay with us.